Hi, good evening. So today I'm going to go over the asset certification use case. So one piece of the VerityBeyond series is that you can onboard assets into your supply chain, and then you can run what we call digital certifications for those assets. Now we can do that at a personal level, and you can also do it at the enterprise level. So what this amounts to is you can select your asset and you can tell the system for all the privileged assets or all the critical assets that belong to a user, let's run a workflow review for all the assets. Okay? So basically that workflow is called the certification automation workflow, and it has a couple of entries. So the first option is to start a new certification for a single target user. So when you set this up, what it essentially does is that it will select all the person who's logged in. It'll find all their assets. So the current person that we're logged into is the global admin, GSAM. So if you look at all their accounts, if you look at all the assets belonging to that user, you will see this person has quite a bit of assets. And again, these are just test assets. So there's 8 assets that we have. So if I run a certification campaign for all my own assets, what you will see is it will run through the asset certification review for all the assets. So here, there's a couple of workflows that we've stood up: customer process, orders workflow, facility safety walk. So let's say we wanted to just use this facility safety walk. In other words, we want to do a facility inspection for all my assets. So what does that look like? So if you go into the design workflow, you go to the QHSC distribution facility. This has all the steps that we would run per asset. Okay. Now, when you set up a workflow, the tool will run through all these steps in the SOP design. However, you can also specify that an asset needs to run with a specific type of workflow. So here we have default classes. You can also tell the system to introduce a custom class. So we can introduce a custom class. For example, we have a AWS server here. So we can tell the system I want to set up an asset mapping. So I want to introduce a custom class. So we can call it Amazon EC2 servers. And the workflow that we want to run for it is going to be customer process order workflow. This is just an example. So when you do that, when you go into your asset view, we'll select the AWS server, and then here now we should be able to see that there's a new asset class called Amazon EC2. So every time you select a custom class and you set that to an asset, when you open that asset, it will automatically pre-select the workflow that we set. So basically what that means is that every asset class that is of Amazon EC2 will hit this workflow. So you can use this to set up asset classes and associate workflows for different types of asset classes. And the bottom line is when you run the certification workflow, the system will trigger certification campaigns based on how you set it up. Now, if the asset class does not have a defined associated workflow, it'll use the default workflow, right? So that's basically what it is. So if you send this off, it's basically gonna launch all the workflows, send out email campaigns, and then it will be the owner's responsibility to run through all the questions and answer all the questions in the workflow. So they go through all the steps. Again, you can use this for performance reviews, security reviews, managing site reliability, maintaining performance metrics, uptime. Break up all your assets. You can kick off workflow for different pieces of your assets, and that way you have that consistency. Okay, so this is what they'll have to walk through. They just have to pass fail and everything will look out good. Okay, so again, I'm not going to go into all of it, but once you look at so that's how you set up kick off a workflow. And after your certifications have been launched, you can go in and then you can look at the results of what happened in our certification. So I just kicked up a certification. Today is the 5th. So I have 30 days to run the certification. The start date is the 5th. This is a default workflow. The status, of course, is going to be active. There's only one owner because it's a personal certification, so it's only going to run certifications for my own associated assets. If it was an enterprise-wide certification, it will calculate all the certifications for all the assets that belong to the owners that are onboarded and that are active. Okay. So it tells me I have 8 assets, and then you'll see the results. Now, as we complete these certification campaigns, this will go from open and then they'll be closed, and this will eventually turn green. Okay, and then reminders as well will be set up. So when you configure an enterprise-wide certification, it's very similar to a personal one will only kick off certifications for what belongs to the person who's logged in. But an enterprise-wide certification will kick off reviews for everybody in the company, and again, there could be a lot of these. So this is something that will be planned, scheduled, and done as needed. You can also kick off a certification campaign based on criteria, right? But for now, it's in the current out-of-the-box solution. It will run certification campaigns for everybody who has an active asset. In the future, we might introduce the ability to run certification campaigns for maybe just a subset of items, like run campaigns for all the assets that belong to a particular class, that have a particular naming convention, etc., etc. So, but right now, this is what is out there. So that's it. Again, I don't want to get into all the details, but that's the certification use case. Again, it's very useful for places where you have assets that belong to a department and they want to do like risk assessments, risk analysis, compliance reviews, risk controls, risk attestations for these assets, and then they group the assets accordingly and run the certifications based on the criteria that you set. So I would like to keep this demo short. Thank you so much for your time, and you have a wonderful day.